Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to witness statements, you have to remember, especially those who witness the fire itself, that most of the time, especially if it's a resident, it's their home, they're watching their personal belongings in flames, and God forbid, somebody's getting hurt. Somebody might be trapped inside. There are a lot of emotions that are that are sort of pouring through that person's mind and body, right? You have the adrenaline, you've got maybe a misunderstanding about how fire works, or just science in general, right? So they may see something. A great example of that would be with a cooking fire. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a witness statement who that indicates that the fire originated at the combination microwave vent hood above a range, right? So when they discover the fire, it's above where it started. It's up in the microwave, right? So they think, well, that the microwave must have started the fire. It's just it's a timeline issue. It's a misunderstanding issue, and again, the adrenaline. And typically, folks aren't really considering what's happening with the fire so much as I need to get out. How do I do that? That's what they're focused on. Who do I need to save? What do I need to save? And how do I get myself out safely? Not where is the seat of the fire? Where's the lowest point where the fire is burning? Right. So that, and then that affects the memory, right? Over time, their memory tends to change. And on the topic of contents, there in the podcast, we were talking about contents and the inability to articulate what was in a building, or what type of item it was in a building. Maybe the recollection is it was a flat screen television when it was a CRT tube, but they're not trying to deceive. Maybe they just don't remember, right? If you were to ask me to fill out a contents inventory on my own home, from memory without having the ability to look at it, I might be able to tell you probably where I bought something a few years ago, but not necessarily the brand, right? So um, the you really have to take into consideration how different the story or the witness statement is compared to what you're seeing. Um, and a lot of times for an investigator, you go in, you look at the physical evidence, you have an idea for what's going on, what may have caused the fire, and then you incorporate the witness statements, or try to understand how those witness statements either enhance what you're seeing or negate what you're seeing, if that makes any sense. It's not always a matter of deception. They're not trying to deceive you necessarily. You just have to figure out, what's their memory like. Well, if I'm interviewing someone, I may ask them the same question 3 or 4 different ways. I'll reword it. You have to pay attention to the order of the questions you ask, because emotions are going to start to build with that as well, right? So if someone loses a family member or a pet in a fire, or here's a big one. So someone's child has a tendency to play with fire. You're not going to ask those questions at the onset of the interview, because they're going to have a tendency to do what we call shut down. They're not going to want to answer any more questions. So you save those till the very end. You sort of start with the lowest or least intrusive, the simplest, easiest questions. Develop a rapport with the person you're talking to, get them to where they're starting to share information. Because if you start with, hey, has your kid ever played with fire? And they know that that's probably what caused the fire, they're going to try to protect their child. And I'd probably do the same, right? You're
Sure.
maybe not going to give any information, or you may try to steer an investigator in another direction, right? So it's a totally natural thing for people to do. So you have to take all those considerations, or all those things into consideration.